Therese Longo is Vice President of Operations for Radcom, and she draws on her background of as a certified performance thinking practitioner and her 15 years of experience as an instructional design professional to drive continuous improvement for clients. She leads the development of Radcom's project teams, helping team members find effective, efficient means of producing impactful, customized documentation, training, and additional support that helps clients enhance their professional abilities. She also works with company executives directly, managing various projects through which she helps clients set and achieve organizational goals. Prior to working in her current position at Radcom, she was the operations manager and senior project writer. She's a member of the Association for Talent Development and the International Society for Performance Improvement. She also holds a Master's of Education Instructional Technology degree from Kent State University here in Ohio. And in her spare time, Therese enjoys rock climbing, pickleball, I heard she's pretty good, and spending time with her parrot, Romeo. So welcome, Therese. I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Matt, and welcome everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces and names, and also some new people out there. So thanks to Kate and Gina for helping with production today. Please reach out to them if you're having any issues. One other little housekeeping thing is I did at the top of the chat put the handout, a link to the handout. If you didn't get that in the email, feel free to download it from the chat. You might find it helpful for taking notes or during the activity. So I'm going to turn off my video to save some bandwidth with all these people, and then we'll get started. All right, so who can tell me what percentage of workplace performance problems are best solved with training? You can type your answers in the chat. Okay. 10%, 50%, 70%. Some good numbers here. A good range, 15%, 70%. Okay, all good guesses. But the actual answer is 11%. Yet the majority of solutions that we provide for our organizations are training. So if the lack of training is the cause of only 11% of performance problems, then what are the other causes? What you see here is Tom Gilbert's behavior engineering model. Tom was a psychologist and is often thought of as a founder of human performance technology. The behavior engineering model is a framework that can be used to optimize the behavioral and environmental factors in organizations in order to enable exemplary performance. It has been adapted through the years, so you may see variations of this out there, such as 6 boxes, or the organization Exemplary Performance has their own model. These 6 aspects influence behavior in the workplace. So I want to go through those real quick here with you so you have a better understanding. Data is about setting expectations and providing feedback. Instruments refers to tools and resources that are needed for work. Incentives, this includes both monetary and non-monetary incentives, could include consequences and also career development opportunities. Then we have knowledge, which we're all familiar with, right? Having the right knowledge and skills. Capacity refers to including physical and mental capabilities for the job, and also selecting the right person for the job. And then finally, motive is about the performer's motivation to do the job, given the incentives and what other factors that might be at play. I'm going to fill in these other numbers here. And what you can see is that 75% of performance problems are caused by the environment, whereas only 25% are the individuals. Really surprising numbers there. So what that tells us is that, there are a lot of things in our environment that we can do to help performers do better. But today we're going to focus on the 11% where training is warranted, and you'll learn how to make it more effective by focusing on performance. But also we'll talk a little bit about how to ensure that the training is sustainable by addressing some of these other aspects that we just went over that influence performance. Focusing on performance starts with a shift. It's a shift from behavior to accomplishments. And I quote, "We must enable people to produce accomplishments, the valuable products of behavior." This is from Tom Gilbert's book, Human Competence. And Gilbert felt that behavior was costly.
Lay down, Maya.
I'm sorry. I hear something in the background. All right, I'll continue. Sorry about that interruption. So Gilbert felt that behavior was costly and that the products of behavior were what was valuable to businesses. So if you think about it, employees do things every day at work. Some produce amazing results and some don't. And the quality of those results can vary, especially if expectations aren't clear. So if we focus on accomplishments or work products, this allows us to define the performance in a concrete way that is then easy to measure. Unlike behavior, which is an event happening in time, work products are a physical thing, something that can be counted. The other thing to think about is that behavior can be harder to observe and evaluate. This is especially true with more people working remotely. But accomplishments are easier to observe and evaluate, as you'll learn shortly. So today's agenda, I'm going to start with talking about how to define performance, then how to define objectives, how to design training, how to define measures, and how to sustain learning. So most instructional designers base the content of their training on the question, what do we want the learner to know? But the problem with starting with this question is that it leads to subject matter-based content and designs that are based on knowledge instead of performance. And today we want to switch that focus to performance. Again, we return to Gilbert's words, right? We need to focus on accomplishments, not knowledge and behavior, to find the real value. Knowledge and behavior or skills are still important, but they play more of a supporting role to accomplishments. So let's look at how to define performance for our training projects. So there are 4 important components when defining performance: work products, standards, tasks, knowledge, and skills. So if we start with work products, we can define those as the result of behavior, countable noun or noun phrase, a valuable contribution to the organization. And work products come in many different forms. They can be deliverables, they can be transactions or decisions, they might be milestones or progress indicators in a process. They can also be relationships to be established and maintained. There are also changes or innovations in organizations, processes, work design. They can also be products of communication, such as what's produced from a meeting or a presentation. It can also be solutions or answers to problems or questions, and also can be people or teams who do or produce X. The work products can be found in the work individuals do in their roles or as outputs of a process. An example of a work product for a sales process might be a sales proposal. Next, let's look at the standards. So standards can be defined as how we describe how well the work product should be done. It should be easily agreed upon. It should be specific and concrete. Standards also can include items such as accuracy, time, for example, the maximum time allowed to produce something, productivity, the quantity that is produced in a period of time, and safety, the standard for avoiding injury to personnel, equipment, or environment. The standards for a sales proposal might include good price point, clear scope, competitive rate. Looking at tasks, instructional designers in the audience might recognize this step as a task analysis that might be done during the analysis phase of instructional design. And these are the behaviors that produce the work product. They include an action verb. They're concrete and specific as well. And if you engage in exemplary performer analysis, meaning that you identify what your best performers are doing and train to that, you'll likely make a bigger impact on job success for your learners. And an example of the tasks for the sales proposal might be gather proposal data, write draft proposal, review QA feedback. And then finally, skills and knowledge. Again, this should be pretty familiar to the instructional designers out there. Skills are the learned abilities required to successfully complete a task. Knowledge is the information needed then to do that task. The skills and knowledge needed to produce a sales proposal might be know what information is needed for the proposal, know which template to use, and a skill might be being able to use Microsoft Word. So together, this information clearly defines the performance and helps drive the design of the training, as you'll see as we continue to move through this webinar. But before I move on, just want to stop here and see if there are any questions about defining performance. This might be new to some people, and it's definitely a different way to look at things, shifting from behavior or competencies to work products. Any questions out there? No? Okay, then I will move on. So now let's practice defining performance for training. Here's the scenario. You're a supervisor at a local diner and you need to create onboarding training for your short order cooks. Our first step is to define the performance. We're going to start with identifying the work products. So think about what a short order cook produces in their role. I'll give you an example. Grilled cheese sandwich. So go ahead and type your answers in the chat, and let's see what you come up with for work products for a short order cook. Fries, wraps, good. A good sandwich. Don't burn the cheese or bread. Okay. Grilled cheese per hour, produce the quality. Okay. So I see people are giving me some standards and some measurements. Side salad. Right. So grilled cheese sandwich might be tomato soup, French fries, BLT, Reuben sandwich, depends on the menu, right? So I think we've got a good start and a good grasp on what work products are. Let's move on to standards. So now, thinking about your grilled cheese sandwich, and I apologize for the grilled cheese sandwich for anyone who might be hungry during lunch right now. So how do we know that the cook produced a great grilled cheese sandwich? As a supervisor, you probably want to You have your own expectations, but also think about what the customer might expect. And I'm going to give you an example to get us started. So one standard I might have is cheese is melted. And I think someone had one up here before. Don't burn the cheese or bread, right? So that would be a standard. Food out on time. How much does this cost? Not sure about that. Enough cheese on the bread, enough cheese to bread ratio, right? Served on a plate. Excellent. Thickness of the cheese is crispy. Excellent. Obviously some people in the audience that enjoy grilled cheese as much as I do. So some of the standards I have where bread is toasted but not burnt, the correct type of cheese is used, correct type of bread is used, sandwich is warm when served, the sandwich contains 2 slices of cheese, the cook uses 1 tablespoon of butter, the cook follows the recipe. So those are all examples of standards. You guys are doing great. Next, let's talk about the tasks. So what does the cook need to do to produce the grilled cheese sandwich? And I'll start us off with gather ingredients. Turn on the burner, heat the grill to proper temperature, heat the pan, butter bread, place cheese, cut and serve, right? Read the customer order. Excellent. All good things. I think this is an area where we're all much more comfortable with behavior and tasks. Wash your hands, right, Kate? Very good. So I had gather the tools, which includes get the skillet, get a knife, get a plate, grill the sandwich, put the skillet on the stove, turn the stove on, prepare the plate, get a plate, put the grilled cheese on the plate, put a pickle on the plate, all of those things. Exactly. So finally, let's talk about skills and knowledge. So what does the cook need to do to produce a grilled cheese? So the cook needs to produce a grilled cheese sandwich. What skills and knowledge do they need to perform at an exemplary level? Here's an example. So knowledge might be different types of cheese, and a skill might be how to butter the bread. Cooking safety knowledge. Yeah, that's a great one, Patricia. Understanding how the grill works. Yep. How to use a commercial stove or grill. Knowledge of the recipe. Skill on how to use the spatula, how to use the grill. You guys got it. No different ingredients. Exactly. We might add to that different types, know the different types of bread, know the parts of a stove, how to use the stove, how to flip a sandwich. So, great. You guys, looks like you have this. So if we put all the things we just did to define performance in this table, it provides a clear definition of what performance for the short order cook looks like. If this were a real training project, you would gather this information for all the work products that the cook needs to be able to produce, not just one. And then this table becomes part of your analysis and/or design. What I love about this approach of defining performance first is that once I've captured this information, I can use it for other things. For example, I can create a performance-based job description, or what I call a performance profile. I can create career path strategy that is based on performance. I can use this information to evaluate employees and tie it to salaries and or promotions. I also could use it to become the basis of guidebooks, which help employees do their job better, sort of like a user manual or training manual. And I can also use this information for coaching. So continuing with our short order cook example, once we've defined the performance, the next step is to define the objectives. And I want to start here by looking at an example of typical learning objectives for short order cook training. So what you see here is based on Bloom's taxonomy. And for those who might not be familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, it's a classification system that we use to define different levels of human cognition, and we often use those to help us define learning objectives into the 6 major categories: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. So this learning objective says at the end of the course, the learner will be able to identify the ingredients in a grilled cheese sandwich, list the steps for making a grilled cheese sandwich, distinguish a good grilled cheese sandwich from a bad grilled cheese sandwich. Now, if you really think about these objectives, they may seem a little silly for ensuring that the cook has learned how to make a grilled cheese sandwich, and would be able to apply this training on the job. So would a supervisor really go up to a short order cook and ask him to identify the ingredients of the grilled cheese? Of course not. They're going to expect that the cook use their knowledge of the ingredients to make a really good grilled cheese. Still, we create learning objectives like this and the activities that go along with them all the time. So here's another set of learning objectives that are commonly seen in training, and these are behavior-based. So at the end of the course, the learner will be able to make a grilled cheese sandwich, prepare a plate for the server. Now, these objectives focus on what the learner needs to do, and I think these are better because at least they focus on what the learner needs to do and most likely will connect back to their jobs. However, if you think back to what Gilbert said, behavior is costly, and what is valuable is what the behavior produces. That is why I find the best way to develop objectives is those that focus specifically on the accomplishments or work products. Here's an example. At the end of the course, the learner will be able to produce to standard a grilled cheese sandwich, a plate ready to go to the customer. So you can see here the change in the language. At the end of the course, the learner will be able to produce to standard. So if you define the performance at the beginning of your training project, the objectives become really easy. They're just the work products defined in your performance table. So I'm going to stop here for a minute and kind of get a pulse and see what advantages do you guys think there are for using work products as objectives versus the other examples that I showed you. So go ahead and type your answers in the chat. Let's see what people think. More measurable. Different behaviors can lead to the same product. More enduring training materials when focused on accomplishments. Provable, whereas knowledge is more ethereal. Very good. Goal-oriented at the end of the training. Right, so those are great answers. I also think an advantage is that it could be more streamlined, right? So extra content isn't included, just what you need to produce the work product, which could result in quicker time to, proficiency. Great answers. All right, so let's do a quick exercise here, just practicing converting learning objectives to performance objectives. Here's the first one, interview potential hires. How might you change this to be a work product or an accomplishment? And there might be more than one answer because these are a little vague. But go ahead and type in chat what this might be as a accomplishment-based objective. Competent people hired, good. I have interview notes, so Jamie jumped a little bit farther ahead to competent person hired. And I have interview notes just from the interview. So let's try the next one, create a design document. So what might be the work product for create a design document? Good, Ginny. Yeah, it's not a trick question. It's really that straightforward, a design document. What about conduct meetings with potential clients? This one might be a little trickier. But think about if you were in a meeting with a potential client, what might be the outcome of that you'd be looking for? There are definitely several answers for this one. Client's expectations, excellent. Proposal, prospectus, great. Client aligned on go forward plan. Establish next steps. Understand business rationale, these are great. Meeting minutes. Looks like you guys are catching on, this is great. I have signed contract. Again, depends on what meeting it is and what the purpose of that specific meeting is, but you all had great answers. So now we're going to try an activity, and for this activity, we're going to shift our focus to a new scenario where instead of training the short order cooks, you and the people in your groups will have to train the wait staff. So in your group, I'd like you to come up with the work products that will serve as your objectives and the standards for each work product. I've provided an example here, and you'll find that on the handout too, if you have that. So the example is, the wait staff will be able to produce an order slip to the following standards. It contains the correct order, it's legible, it has the table number on it, it's turned in within 2 minutes of placement. So Gina's going to put you in groups in a minute, and you'll have about 5 minutes with your group to come up with as many as you can. Anyone have their link to the handout? Jennifer, is if you scroll all the way up to the top of the chat, there's a link there for you. Any questions before we move into our breakout groups? Nope. Okay, then go ahead and move everyone to their groups, Gina. I'd like to see what you guys came up with. Instead of using chat, let's use one person from each group can unmute themselves and share maybe just one work product that you came up with and a couple of the standards, that would be great. I'll take volunteers. So I don't know who was in what group, so.
So, hi, this is Herman from Huntsville. So Don and Matt and I came out of our rooms, so I'll just volunteer and go first if that's okay.
Yep.
So the standard is experience, right? We want to develop a standard based on the experience. And that would be in 4 categories: seating, ordering, eating, and leaving. And we want to make those experiences great for the patron.
And did you come up with some work products or some accomplishments for the wait staff?
Yep. So in seating, it'll be the host to waiter transfer, how that's done. In ordering, it would be making, paying attention from appetizer to dessert, getting it timely. From eating, it would be the food standards, right? In particular, the temperature. So the hot food comes out hot and the ice cream comes out cold and not melted. And in the pay, on the leaving, it would be an efficiency in the way to pay. And if you have a take-home box, take-home box. Sometimes pay can be done at the booth or seating through a machine. And if those experiences all tie together well, then we have a repeat customer for life.
Okay, great. Does someone else want to share? Thanks, Herman.
So this
I'll
is
go.
Ginny.
Oh, Ginny, you go.
Okay. In our group, we had some really good ones. A bust table, cleaned of plates, wiped down, was a couple of the standards. We also had a comment card from the customer, and the standard would be with positive feedback. We also had some food that Herman talked about too. So I'll let the next person go.
Okay, I'll go. This is Darcy. I had Jennifer and oh my God, it just went out of my head.
Jamie, it's okay.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. So we had, so we were looking at the order slip. And so talking about being able to create a proper order slip by using the POS system. So have a properly running POS system. We had, look at here it is. Just having, like everyone said, to bring out an accurate product from the kitchen that is to standards and to be able to give it to the correct customer. So be able to produce the food to the correct person or present, I'm sorry. So I'm not sure if that's really a product. That's more of a standard. So go ahead.
So the work product could be correct food at the right table.
Right.
Right. And then you could have some standards for that.
Right. And I also, I'm sorry, Therese. I also wanted to say that all of us in our group had scrolled up to get the link and it's not there for us.
I just posted it again.
Yay,
So
thank you.
hopefully you can access it now again.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Did we have any other groups? I don't remember how many we had, 3 or 4. Did every group get a chance to go?
We did not hear from room 1, Jamie, Patricia, Sarah.
Was trying to come off of mute and turn my video on, but so we talked about, Sarah brought up a good one, and it was the example of at the end of the meal with the receipt, right? So making sure that some of the stuff, like it's accurate. If there was specials or happy hours, that it's priced correctly. It's obviously taken to the right table. You know, you've seen the horror stories about the way sometimes you can name tables and how those come across that you've seen in stories that they weren't very appropriate. So making sure there's none of that on the ticket. So that was the direction we went with it.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. Then let's going to put myself on video. And let's move on to the next slide. Then, so now that you've defined the performance you want from your learners and defined the objectives, wanted to talk briefly about how that impacts the design of your training. So obviously we don't have enough time today to dig really deeply into designing training, but I did want to just talk briefly about how defining the performance in the front end can really streamline the design. So you can see here we have our performance table, we have work products that help us define the objectives. We have the standards then that help us define how to evaluate the quality of the work product. And then the tasks are what the learner needs to learn how to do. And the skills and knowledge enable the learner to complete the tasks to produce the work product. So you can see the last two columns here help really drive what content needs to be in the training course. They will need to learn how to perform the task using the necessary skills and knowledge that is provided in the training. And ideally, the training would include practice producing that work product. So during that practice, the facilitator can then ensure that the learner can produce it to the standards required on the job. And the benefit of this is that it provides a really easy transition from producing the work product in training to when they do it on the job. So I know that's just a really brief covering of designing training, but maybe that's an idea for another webinar. So measurement is another aspect of training design that becomes easier with the focus of performance. So by defining the work products, which are nouns, coupled with the standards, right, which defines what a good one looks like, we now have a really easy way to count what is produced to standard. So here we have the performance table again for the grilled cheese sandwich. And the easiest measurement is counting the number of grilled cheese sandwiches produced to standard by a certain time, right? So produces so many sandwiches by the end of the shift or something like that, right? If we wanted to look at year-long goals or 6 months, we could do that as well. So some of the other measurements that we could also produce, the other things we could measure might be the ratio of number of grilled cheese sandwiches that meet standards each shift versus the total number of grilled cheese sandwiches made. We might measure the number of grilled cheese sandwiches that reach the customer within a certain number of minutes. And we also might measure the number of customer complaints related to grilled cheese sandwich quality. So if you are getting a lot of complaints about the grilled cheese sandwich, you could start to measure that and see, once you did your training, did that improve? So we're going to shift our focus back to that scenario where you're the supervisor and you have to train the wait staff. Using the work products you identified in the last activity, now decide how you will measure that performance. Let's provide an example to help you get started. You can see the order slip here and the standards. Then the measure that we have is just, we want to measure the number of correct orders done in a shift. So you have about 5 minutes in your group to come up with as many measurements that match up with the number of work products that you have. We all are going to put you back into the same groups again. So Gina, do you want to go ahead and put people in their groups? Okay, so the last thing I want to just talk about briefly is sustaining the learning. So what we've covered so far provides some great ways to create performance-based training, but one of the aspects that sometimes is forgotten is how do we sustain that once the people are back on their jobs? So what can we do to increase the likelihood that the desired change in behavior really happens and is sustained? So this is where the other aspects of Gilbert's behavior engineering model come back into play. And so, training explicitly focuses on the knowledge and skills, but it can provide a vehicle for using the other aspects that enable exemplary performance. So to look at each of these aspects and how we might use them to support learners when they're on the job after training. What you can do is, I'm going to show you in a minute, there are questions for each of these aspects that the instructional designer could use to ask and come up with some solutions for supporting that additional behavior that we're looking for. So for data, how will you set expectations? How will you provide feedback? So you want to think about those things in regards to the training. How are you going to do that? Do they have the resources they need? So this is another opportunity to say, hey, do they have the right tools that they need on the job? Do we need to create maybe another job aid or something like that? Also, do they have the support they need? And that's not only in terms of resources, but also in terms of people. Is their manager supportive of them? Are they getting the feedback they need in order to perform those new tasks in a exemplary fashion? Incentives. Are there positive incentives in place? Are there any negative consequences? Are there any consequences in general, right? So you might be wanting to change some behavior, but if there's no consequence for the bad behavior, then you still might not be getting the results you're looking for. So for capacity, do they have the capacity for the new performance? You might be adding some new things for them to have to do, but do they have the time to be able to do those things well? Are they the right person for the job to be, are those the right tasks to be given that person? You want to be thinking about those things. And then motives. Are they motivated to produce the new work products? And how does that tie back to incentives? So in an interest of time, it's 1 o'clock. I know people probably have to go, so I'm going to just move on. Again, would love to get your input on what you think the advantages are to this approach. If you want to just jot some things into the chat, that would be great. Trackable. Focuses on the end result, consistency, right? Eliminates guesswork to the training content, right? I like that it sets clear expectations and helps with the measurement piece. Evaluating becomes really clear when we define the performance up front. Improves understanding by delivering a clear result. Great. Keeps it organized and makes trainer think to hit certain goals to help trainees. Exactly. I think also defining the performance makes it more job relevant. Yeah, good point, Don. Establishes a basis for employee and boss to be on the same page. Considers other aspects that impact performance, not just training. So yeah, lots of good things. Are there any questions that anybody had that I can answer? And thank you. You can find me at tlongo@radcomservices.com and on LinkedIn if you have any further questions about what we covered today or want to talk through an issue you might be having that this might help. So thank you for your time and attention.